Do you find that your relationships are following the same exact patterns, whether it's at work, in your friendships, or at home? For anxious, high-achieving professionals, we can find that our negative dynamic is keeping us looped in to the same reactionary responses, not deferring on what the relationship is, but those interactions of stress keep us held in these patterns that feel like they're holding us back. Hi, I'm Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we're talking about relationships and implicit memory today. And what implicit memory is 95% of the decisions that we make is implicit memory. It means it's just something that comes up. We don't have recall on why we have that memory in the first place. So we have no idea why we are doing the things that we're doing. And so as a licensed mental health counselor and a brain coach, I have helped thousands of people be able to better understand why people do the things that they do and how the brain specifically has predictive patterns to our behaviors. And one of the things that we find is that there's implicit and explicit memory. Explicit memory is like the things that you know, like how you held a bat, or the things that you can recall, like this is how I learned that. Implicit memory is like picking up and using a fork. You don't really know how. It wasn't like somebody like you can remember, well, you put the fork in your hand and we said choo 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 and we put it in our face and now that's what we do, choo choo choo. It's just implicit. There's so much knowledge out there. And a couple weeks ago, we talked about that collective unconscious. It's just this kind of knowledge that's out there that we've picked up along the way. And there's no real way to account for how we got it. So that is what's driving our behaviors. That's why it can feel so complicated. And remember that amygdala, that primitive brain, lizard brain, monkey brain, is a big part of this. It's sitting there kind of gnawing at us, trying to get us to stay in a reactionary state so that it can feel like it is the most important decision maker in your life. And so if we look at our childhood experiences, we can see that there's a lot of part of our childhood experiences that are imprinting templates on our brain for how we want to interact with people. And if we look at that negative dynamic, we see attachment is 25% of the negative dynamic. 25%. And it is feeding half of those feedback loops. So what does that mean? It means that there are a lot of things that have happened in our past that will indicate how we act or react, especially in our relationships. And attachment theory accounts for caregivers, but it also accounts for some other pieces. And my book, Key Steps to Live a Happier and Healthier Life, Part 2, Emotional Regulation, we look at, as a part of that emotional regulation space, we look at invalidating environments. And in that part, and also in grief, we look at attachment. And attachment is way bigger than just our caregivers. We can have attachment come up in school, at work, in relationships and friendships. It can be in a lot of different places. And every time we have an interaction with somebody, there's an opportunity for us to lose that idea that we can give and receive freely, secure attachment, to this idea of fear of abandonment, fear of being a burden or an obligation on ourselves, or equitably both happening at the same time. And that's because when we interact with highly stressful people, we're starting to imprint relationship patterns on our brain. And so when other highly stressful interactions happen, we're going to go straight to that imprint of those past interactions. We're going to hover in that doorway. And as we hover in that doorway, we're going to try to react as quickly as possible. And now we are at the bottom of that negative dynamic in a perceived reality. We're in an effort to protect ourselves and create a perceived sense of control. We have lensed our past stress or trauma, and it is filtering how we are seeing and perceiving the world and how we are now interacting with the world. And what that is doing is setting ourselves up for a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're allowing ourselves to be in a place where our greatest fear is going to come true. That we are going to be abandoned. That we are going to be a burden. That there will be an obligation on us. They're both equitably happening at the same time. And the reason this happens is because of that stress and these feedback loops that's in the implicit brain. It creates these stuck points where attachment feeds our negative narrative, brings up our trauma, creates invoicing and perceived expectations. And there's probably 1,300 feedback loops just in that piece right there. And so, why is it even harder for anxious high achievers? Well, because anxious high achievers really have this struggle with emotional vulnerability. And emotional vulnerability says that we really don't want to open ourselves up. There's a lot of avoidant tendencies. And so that means that interactions don't feel really safe. It feels like I have to do everything. That's why I'm an anxious overachiever. I must have my hand in the pot. But the good news is when my hand's in that pot, good things happen. So I have a high internal locus of control. Yay, that means success. But I also have low ability to trust that other people are capable of doing things. I also don't really like to put myself out there because I don't really want to know what's going to come back. And I have a lot of narratives and stories that are happening about what relationships are and how do I kind of get past these narratives of what a relationship is and how it feels a little icky and overwhelming. And that icky and overwhelming is what causes emotional vulnerability to be so difficult. Because we really don't want to put ourselves out there. We don't want to be rejected. We have curated this perfect little life and it works for us. We go to work. We get a lot of external validation for what we do at work. We put all of our kind of eggs in the work basket. We may have some social life things happening, but we're still curated in our social life. And we're really preventing ourselves from putting ourselves out there to really see what the chances of life are and what they actually have to offer us. And when we're looking at this triangle of feedback loops, we have either this shame or guilt or, and we're going to talk about this at the end of the week, so subscribe and stay tuned. And these universal constructs that says, I need to be more strict. I need to kind of get a handle on this. There's too much chaos out there. And so we're constantly kind of coming in, trying to control and have perceived control over a situation. And as we are trying to perceive control over a situation, chaos is constantly kind of bumping into us. Think of a wave pool and leaves. And as we are trying to collect those leaves, what we're doing is we are the waves are coming and the leaves are coming out. And so as we're trying to get the leaves back, the leaves are leaving. I'm bringing it back. And so what will either happen is one of two things. You will either give into external locus of control. Life is too chaotic and doesn't matter what I do. Like, the leaves are going to just go and do wherever they want to. I can't control it. We say we have no control. We come back in, wallow in shame and guilt, and start avoiding again. But some anxious high achievers, what they like to do is they want to hop between the 13 to the power of 3. That's 2,200 different feedback loops of staying in this sense of perceived control. And that looks like obsessing over your finances. It looks like controlling what you eat, what you don't eat. A lot of discipline, lots of language of discipline. A lot of performance versus rotting or finding self-care. It's all about productivity, no self-care. There's a lot of lack of balance and a lot of this duty to serve, which reinforces a sense of being a burden and the overwhelming, like, oh, I just can't imagine putting more on my plate. It's hard enough to be in this life. How am I going to add chaos and bring another life into this? So this contrived world becomes their safety net. And that leads us to this trigger response cycle. And in the trigger response cycle, it really will create damaging relationships in our professional domain, because of the fact that this sense of need to perform and that external validation versus internal validation, all of these are a part of the 2,200 feedback loop. It's okay. I'm not going to go through all 2,200, I promise. But internal and external validation is a part of this. External validation is really what we get lost in as we try to perform and find sense out of all of this productive dynamic. And that will lead to burnout. It'll lead to low value. It'll lead to disruptive relationships where people think that you're trying to one-up them. It'll lead to catty remarks where people are putting you down because they are equitably fearful of or resentful of you, as well as being admiring you. And this can be your own family. We see a lot with anxious high performers that one parent usually has this equal sense of resentment and admiration for them. They resent their capacity to do something that they can't do and admire their capacity of how they have grown beyond what they are able to do. And that's why it makes it so complicated, because right there, a data point that you have, I'm going to question that it's valid. It is an actual data point. And the validity is not that it doesn't exist. The validity is, does it really serve you? Because ultimately, that data point is not yours. It's somebody else's. It's somebody who's projecting onto you. And you're taking it for yourself and you're unlacking, and it's only driving you to want to perform more. And so there are 4 evidence-based techniques so that we can rewire our relationship patterns. The first one is mindfulness and grounding. You've got to be in the here and now. If you are not in the here and now, you are not going to be able to have a present state of being able to be emotionally vulnerable, accountable, and able to be to get out of those reactionary cycles. And yesterday we talked about response over reaction. This is one of those things. Is we need to have a response, not a reaction, because it'll pull us into Gottman's 4 horsemen. It'll pull us into not feeling seen and heard or valued. It'll pull us into defensiveness. Like, there's all these things. Number 2 is the trust feedback loop. And the trust feedback loop, it always comes back to this, is when you don't trust yourself and you avoid that negative cycle, will pull you into a negative dynamic, will pull you away from your present. Your partner or whoever else is interacting, right, will see that you are not present. So they'll say, well, you're not present with me. You're holding back from me. I can't trust you. So then they will start to hold back from you. And then you come in and you're like, hey, what's going on over here? Well, I can't trust you. You're not being fully present with me. So I'm gonna withhold from you. And then we just keep going back and forth. And that's how these dynamics begin. And that's how it gets so reinforced. It's yet another of 2,213 to the power of 3 feedback loops that we get into. Number 3 is cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy says I have thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And all I have to do is find out one of those, and it can change how the others happen. And my science-based framework says awareness, acceptance, and action using these cognitive behavioral techniques of the ABC model, antecedent behavior consequence, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, all these triangles. Awareness, acceptance, and action. Being aware of what our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are, accepting them for what they are, and not that it is a sense of value for us or that we agree with it, and then taking direct action steps to correct it and change it. And what that's going to do is change our mindset. It's going to really change the trajectory of our value, our purpose, our meaning. And my coaching sessions, this is exactly what I do. I give you concrete activities, worksheets, journal prompts, everything you need to be actively engaged in changing and rewiring your brain for success. And that can be because you need a new job. That could be because you want a husband or a partner. That could be because things aren't really going well in your relationship. That could be because you had a major change and things just don't feel like they're falling into place. It could be because you're anxious, depressed. It can be really for anything. Brain coaching says that life is chaotic and we are 95% likely to react in a way that we're going to cause more chaos as we attempt to seek perceived control. My framework is going to give you intention, empowerment, purpose, and balance, an understanding of this response, this frontal lobe executive function response, to zoom out and see how all the places fit together to make another intentional act. Awareness, acceptance, action. The next and fourth and final evidence-based technique to rewire our relationship patterns is DBT. And dialectical behavior therapy, it comes off of cognitive behavioral therapy. And what it says is that in order to build a life worth living, we need to have purpose and direction, accountability, dedication. We need to have this emotional regulation, and we need to have interpersonal effectiveness. My 3 key step workbooks go through all 3 of these processes. It breaks down a framework for success and a life worth living. It looks at our side of the street and what our emotions are and why we act and react the way we do. And then it takes both of those and combines it to say, now how do we network ourselves and how do we be the most present with the people we're interacting with in order to negotiate our value, to be able to validate somebody else to pivot and then set a boundary statement to realize our value and our needs. And all the reasons why we can get swept up. It helps us to now have and connect back to that internal value and then share what it is. All of these links so that you can access these things, get a free 15-minute wellness insight with me to build your plan, to get each of those key step books, to even learn about the bad brain and why we get stuck in these things in the first place. All those links are in the video description. So go check it out. And if you find yourself in a relationship and you're stuck in these dynamics, I just opened up registration for Couples Masterclass, writing the next chapter in your love story. So go check it out. Sign up on www.counselingwellnesssolutions.com. And thank you so much. Thank you. Build a happier and healthier self. And the whole intention through 27 lessons broken down into little two-minute bites is to write the next chapter in your love story. So go in, sign up, subscribe. I've got a lot more in store for you. So go in, sign up, subscribe. I've got a lot more in store for you.